Ready to go? Okay, good evening, everyone. And first, I'd like to apologize for being repetitive, but we are each of the candidate forums or the races that we're featuring, we start them all over for live stream. So for the sake of the audience out on live stream, we're doing this again. So bear with us as we go through this. My name is Marnie Sanders, and I'm the CEO of the Yuba-Sutter Chamber of Commerce, and it is a pleasure to be here with all of you this evening. Thanks for hanging in there with the heat in this room. We have been trying to bring it down, but to no avail. So, but you all know what an important evening this is, and so I know you're hanging in there, and when you step outside, it'll feel really refreshing when you leave for the evening. Because I'm not sure it's ever going to get cool in here before we're done. Okay, so I would like to thank our partner, the Appeal Democrat, for helping us to put these on. We've been doing these for 30 some odd years, right, Bob? Yeah, 32, in partnership with the Appeal Democrat, so we're grateful to them. Also want to extend a special thank you to Feather River Academy for allowing us to use this nice warm building tonight. We do have some extra bottles of water if anybody's really thirsty. Probably not enough for everybody, but if you really need a drink, we can share with you. I just wanted to mention, too, to be sure to check out the Appeal Democrat in the following days after these forums. You will find the questions and the responses featured there as well. And then hello to those on live stream. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Nikki Rogers, who is a board member of the Chamber of Commerce, and she is also the chair of our Government Affairs Committee. And she's going to go over, again, in case you didn't pick up on it, the format for the evening. All right, thanks.
Thank you, and I guarantee you, these ladies are hotter than anyone else in the room. It's very hot on stage, so... Okay, so we're going to finish off the evening with the Sutter County District Attorney, Amanda Hopper Incumbent, and Jennifer Dupree. So as we mentioned before, tonight's forum, each candidate will have 90 seconds for an opening statement. Then we will have a series of questions provided by the audience, the committee, and readers of the Appeal Democrat. If you do have a question that you would like considered, please raise your hand. Bill over there up against the wall has cards, so he can bring those to you guys. For those of you on live stream, please just enter your questions into the comments, and we will keep an eye on that for you. We do ask that the questions be brief, and please make sure that they are directed to both candidates, as we cannot consider them if they're only directed to one candidate. We do have a series of questions already planned for the evening, so if we do not get to yours, we do apologize. We're going to have time for about 10 questions total, so we'll do our best. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question. Rebuttals will be allowed only if there is a reference to a particular opposing candidate in another candidate's answer. Those rebuttals will be allowed up to 30 seconds. At the end of each question, each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for their closing statement. No rebuttals will be allowed during the closing statements. For the candidates, please keep your eye on our timekeeper, Miss Jackie Lee. She has 3 cards, one that says 30 seconds, one that says 15 seconds, and one that says time's up. We ask everyone to please be respectful of time and stay within your time limit. And again, we would just like to thank everyone for joining us this evening, this hot evening, and for wanting to learn more about the candidates tonight. And a special thank you to our candidate forum for putting on this evening and all the time that went into it. Robert Suma, Bob Harlan, Jackie Lee, Marnie Sanders, Ted Lindbergh, and Russ Haug over there. Thank you guys for everything. And then as far as our moderators tonight, we have Robert Suma, with the editor of the Appeal Democrat, and Bob Harlan, executive director of the Yuba-Sutter Calusa United Way, both of which have donated many hours to determine the issues pertinent to Sutter County and bring you tonight's forum. So I will go ahead and turn this over to them.
A little bit of clarity, Facebook is where this is appearing on, so you might want to text people that may want to see it, and it will be on the Yuba-Sutter Chamber of Commerce Facebook page through Election Day. We're going to start out with 90-second opening statements, up to 90 seconds, and we'll start out with the incumbent, Amanda Hopper.
Thank you, and thank you all of you for being here tonight. 8 years ago, when I went through the same process, I made a promise that I would ensure that the District Attorney's Office in Sutter County investigated and prosecuted crimes with integrity, with justice, and with an independent and unbiased view. That's what we've done. When I took office, I quickly learned that there was a good old boy system alive and well in Sutter County, and that there were people who have political power, money, support, and big names who expected direct access to the district attorney and special treatment of cases. I refused, and that quickly resulted in me closing my door to anyone who did not have a legitimate purpose at my office. I still meet with victims, I still meet with witnesses, I still meet with justice partners, or anyone who has a reason to be there. But I will not meet with people who want to come in and try and receive special treatment. And that closed door has resulted in ruffled feathers. And I'm okay with that, because I am proud of what my office has done. We do handle cases strong. We've created many new units since I became the district attorney's office. Some of the more recent ones, because I'm short on time, include an EDD fraud task force, increasing awareness for fentanyl charges, and one of the great things that we've done is grown our victim services program and created a child advocacy center. I am proud of the accomplishments of this office, and I'm proud of the accomplishments of my staff. Thank you.
And Jennifer Dupree, you have up to 90 seconds for an opening statement.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Jennifer Dupree, and I am running for District Attorney of Sutter County. I want to serve Sutter County, my home, as District Attorney to provide effective leadership, restore communication with our law enforcement partners, effectively prosecute and aggressively prosecute crimes, and make Sutter County a safer place for all of us to live. The Sutter County District Attorney's Office needs a true leader, a leader who will show up every day and actually lead the people in the office, lead by example. I will prioritize leadership, personal accountability, and transparency. I have lived in Sutter County for over 17 years. I am in my 18th year as a prosecutor, providing true justice to other communities. I want to do that for my own community. I spent almost 6 years in the Yuba County District Attorney's Office. I'm in my 12th year in the Butte County District Attorney's Office, where I'm a supervising deputy district attorney with an assignment of homicide and gang crimes. I have prosecuted everything from infractions through homicide cases, gang cases, and I was one of the 2 prosecutors who prosecuted PG&E to conviction of 84 counts of involuntary manslaughter, and I was actually honored for that today by victim assistance. I will treat everyone fairly and equally as your district attorney. Thank you.
And thank you very much. We're going to start with our first question, and to ask that first question will be Robert Suma.
Hi. Thank you, Amanda and Jennifer, for being here. Appreciate it. First question is pretty simple. What is the role of a district attorney? Jennifer.
The role of the district attorney is to do justice, and we do that by applying the law equally and fairly to everyone, regardless of race, socioeconomic status, who you know in the community. And part of doing justice is listening, communicating, working with law enforcement. The role of the district attorney is to make our community safer.
Amanda?
Thank you. I think there's a lot of times a misconception as to what the district attorney's role is, because as an elected official, I actually have a constitutional duty to only one client, and that is justice. It's the people of the state of California and justice. I don't have a duty to meet with constituents the way other elected officials do, and I think that is sometimes confusing for people. If I were to do that, then I wouldn't be an unbiased district attorney. And so public safety, ensuring strict and firm prosecution of individuals who commit crimes is what the district attorney's office does. Providing advocacy and services for victims who are impacted by crime is what a district attorney does. Leading and administering in the office is what a district attorney does. Catering to the public is not.
Okay, let's go to the next question, and we'll start out with Amanda Hopper. So you brought the term justice up. What will you do to ensure justice as a district attorney, if you could both explain that?
Sure. So ensuring justice is what we do every single day in my office. I have attorneys in my office, investigators, victim advocates, and support staff who all work towards that same common goal of ensuring justice. The way we do it is a little different from law enforcement, and that is we handle cases when they are submitted to our office and decide whether or not a crime has been committed, whether or not we can prove it, and whether it is the just thing to do to follow through with prosecution. It's that last question that is the most important. Is it right? Is it just? Will it promote the safety of this community? That is what we do, and that is how we ensure justice.
Jennifer?
The way to do justice is to follow the law and apply it equally to everyone. We do that by being informed via our law enforcement partners, via our DA investigators, and we consider all of the factors. We don't necessarily focus on what is the right thing to do when a crime has been committed. That is not necessarily doing justice, because determining what is right for one person might not be the same considerations for what is right for another person. That is not treating people equally, and that is not doing justice. So we apply the facts to the law, determine if we can prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, and if so, we file the case absent extenuating circumstances that would prevent us from being able to prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt.
Thank you. We hear a lot how district attorneys, law enforcement, their hands are tied by the state or state laws. What hurdles does a district attorney face in California? Jennifer.
Oh boy, that's much more than a 1-minute question. The laws that are coming out of Sacramento are incredibly unfavorable. So the hurdles we have to jump over are many. We need to be creative. We have to address the changes in the sentencing laws, the changes in the lengths of probation, the changes of what is a felony versus what is a misdemeanor, even the changes in how we are allowed to pick a jury versus how the defense is allowed to pick a jury. The way we do that is by being creative and being persistent. Just because the laws are unfavorable does not mean that we cannot do justice, prosecute cases, and make the community safer. Sometimes we just need determination and persistence. Build a book, develop a history, so that eventually we are able to charge the more substantive crimes or receive the more substantive penalties. So yes, the laws out of Sacramento are not good, and it's very challenging, but it's doable.
Amanda?
Thank you. The specific hurdles are broad, but it boils down to a couple things. Mainly, we live in a state that does not really value criminal justice and doesn't want to enforce punishment strongly against those who break the law. That's the reality of the legislature that we're dealing with. And specifically, you see reduced sentences for things like crimes of theft, drugs, gang enhancements. They are becoming an absolute battle. Early release for inmates. All of these are some of the hurdles. But there's also a big hurdle that happens within the office, and that is the frustration and demoralization of prosecutors and law enforcement when the work that we have done for years is not valued, and the tools that we've used to effectively promote public safety are taken away from us by the legislature. So making sure that we're aware of how we can maneuver through it and stay positive and determined is something that we constantly work on.
Amanda, let's start next one, and it's kind of a follow-up to the previous question. What kind of reform or reforms are needed in the justice system in California?
You mean if I could have the laws that I want for reform? I would say in the justice system, we need to go back to having inmates stay in prison for the sentences that they are given, and not released early. I think that we should have stronger sentences for a lot of crimes, but specifically one that I feel strongly about is driving under the influence. Driving under the influence is a crime that is far too frequent and rampant, and people continue to do it despite knowing how inherently dangerous it is. That every single person who is driving while under the influence places themselves and everyone near them at risk, and yet there are still sentences, multiple times. The most frequent sentence is a misdemeanor for that. So that's one of the areas that I feel strongly about, and there's many others, but that's a big one.
Jennifer?
Thank you. I would start off by making life mean life. Life no longer means life. A sentence to life in prison oftentimes now means 25 years. That is not fair to the victims of the crimes for which people have been sentenced to life. I would change life back to life. I would get rid of the county prison and make people who are sentenced to prison actually serve it in a state prison instead of county prison. I would go back to the longer probation terms so that criminals are supervised longer. I would change the laws that have made many crimes that we had discretion on misdemeanors, which is why we get repeat offenders that are not getting any punishment. Those are just the start of what I would go back to if we could. Those are some of the changes I would like to see so that, again, justice can truly be done.
Thank you. Next question. Jennifer, why are you qualified for this position?
I'm sorry, why am I qualified?
Why are you qualified to be Sutter County District Attorney?
I have been a prosecutor for 17 and a half years. I have handled every type of crime. I believe in communication. I believe in an open door policy, not just with law enforcement, which we need to reestablish, but with the community so that we can hear their concerns. 57 counties can communicate and still deliver impartial justice. Sutter County should be the 58th. I am currently a supervising deputy district attorney. I supervise teams of anywhere from 4 to when I supervise the entire office. We have over, I believe we currently got 32 attorneys. My experience, my communication skills, my dedication to true justice all make me qualified. My track record proves it.
Amanda?
Thank you. I started in the Sutter County District Attorney's Office 19 years ago. I have handled every type of crime that you can in that office. But more importantly, I have been leading that office for, this is my 8th year. And in that time, first off, the administrative duties of a district attorney are much more complicated than many people think. I've been able to come under budget every single year, and at the same time have grown my staff, grown our efforts, grown our victim services program. When I started, there was 1.5 employees. We now have 7, all of which has been through grant funding that has not impacted the county's general fund. So one of the things that I can ways that I can show you I'm qualified to lead is I have been leading. I have a good staff of people. We handle cases well. We protect this community. We get good sentences. We train our people, and we work together. So I can lead because I am, and I'm proud of the office that I lead.
Okay, thank you. And we're going to start the next question with Amanda. We've had some interesting cases where juveniles have been charged in adult court, some of them as young as around 14. When would you use your authority to file charges in adult court, and when would you pursue a case in juvenile court? How do you work on that with an underage person?
Well, in the last few years, my authority to do so has been greatly reduced by laws in California. Before, it was pretty much if they committed a violent or serious crime, you could choose whether or not to file that case in adult court or juvenile court. Now there is a small list of enumerated crimes that a juvenile qualifies for if we want to try and charge them as an adult. Having said that, all we can do is start the process. It's ultimately up to the court who makes that determination. Now we have to go through what's called a fitness hearing, and the court decides whether or not the juvenile is suitable for adult court or juvenile court. There are strict factors that have to be met in order for that to happen, so it's no longer a discretionary type decision.
Jennifer?
The laws have changed to make it harder to charge juveniles as adults. That hasn't stopped juveniles from committing adult crimes. We need to comply with the new regulations. Some of the things we need to look at are the juvenile's prior criminal history, whether the juvenile has gang ties. Both of those can be used to encourage the court to find the juvenile suitable for adult court. The age is a major factor. Again, the type of crime that the juvenile has committed is a factor. And then depending on the severity of the case and the nature of the case, there are things we can do, such as using expert witnesses to explain to the court why the juvenile is fit for adult court. Again, there are things we can do. Everything is just much harder, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do them.
Thank you. Obviously, a big movement to change the justice system here in the state, here in the country, has been sparked by use of force by law enforcement, particularly deaths of individuals apprehended by law enforcement or who encountered law enforcement. As district attorney, how would you handle a fatal use of force incident involving local police? Jennifer.
So most counties have an officer-involved shooting team. Yuba-Sutter do as well. They have for many years, including when I was at the Yuba County District Attorney's Office back when I started in 2005 through December of 2010. Their job is to investigate impartially the facts surrounding the incident and provide a report to the district attorney. The district attorney then is tasked in making a decision as to whether or not it was quote, a good shoot or not. There are specific guidelines for that. I personally paid out of pocket to go to a training on that because we do have outstanding officer-involved shootings reports that have not been determined despite the passage of over a year. That way I'll be able to hit the ground running when I take office. But we need to follow those specific guidelines so that we can make the appropriate decisions.
Amanda?
Thank you. In 2015, Yuba and Sutter counties had their first officer-involved shooting team. I know this because I implemented it. Prior to that, the DA investigators or the local law enforcement agency, the sheriff's office or the police department, did those investigations. The statewide training that is offered to district attorneys right now regarding officer-involved shootings is based largely on the model that I created. So I am familiar with this. Right now, with changing laws, the first thing that has to happen when you're talking about a fatal officer-involved incident, assuming that the individual is unarmed and even in questionable circumstances, sorry, I'm short for time, you now have to reach out to the Attorney General's office and they have to decide whether they're going to come in and conduct that investigation. So far, they haven't done so here locally. Our team does the investigation. They're very complex, very lengthy, very detailed investigations. And that also has resulted in us needing to reach out and contract with national use of force experts for expert opinions before we decide how to move forward. And then I make a legal determination as to whether or not the officer acted lawfully.
Okay, we'll start our next question with Amanda, and this also is talking about juveniles. And perhaps this is your role in helping to reduce the number of juveniles who fall into the criminal justice system. What can we do in our community to do a better job of keeping kids out of trouble?
Outreach in the schools is huge. It's something we've tried over the years. I used to run a program where we did a DUI sentencing in all of our local high schools. Studies show that for juveniles who may turn into committing crimes, there's some key ages. 5th grade is the most important age, so there's some programs out there that talk about outreach in the schools at 5th grade. That's something that we've tried to do. COVID's kind of put a damper on that. But in all honesty, our juvenile hall and Camp Singer areas here in town have some great programs. They really do teach these juveniles life skills. They have in-house services for them while they're there, including counseling services, and gives them the best opportunity to come out better than they went into it. By far not a guarantee. In fact, it's not something that is, I would even know the statistics of. But outreach, education, services, those are huge, and then rehabilitation services as well.
Jennifer?
So to try and keep juveniles from entering the justice system, there are several things that we can do. One of the key things is we need more things for our children to do in this community. And that's something that I would be happy to work with the supervisors, the city council, educators, to come up with things for our kids to do. Because if they've got things to occupy themselves, they stay out of trouble. Studies have proven that time and time again. There are also other things we can do in terms of outreach and education. Going to schools is one thing, but we need to work on bullying, because again, that causes criminality. We need to address the trafficking issue. Again, as young as middle school, trafficking has become a problem. That also leads to criminality in our youth. All of these are things that we can address before our children enter the criminal justice system, and we should be doing that.
Thank you. What programs and policies would or could you implement as district attorney to reduce crime and increase public safety in the county? Jennifer.
Well, the biggest policy would be to reestablish communication with law enforcement. I would make sure that all of law enforcement, anyone who wants it, has my cell phone number, and I won't change it. They will be able to reach me 24/7, just as the law enforcement partners that I work with now can do. That wouldn't change. I already have worked with Brandon Barnes when we were both in Yuba County. I would continue that working relationship and develop it further. Being able to work with our justice partners is one of the key ways to improve safety in our community, both to cut down on crime and to prosecute it at the appropriate times. So one of my biggest policies would be communication, an open door policy. I would like to set up a ag task force, ideally with law enforcement, but certainly within the DA's office, so that the ag crimes can finally be appropriately addressed, and the farmers, ranchers would have a consistent person that they can reach out to, and an investigator that would help us spot trends as well as have consistent prosecution.
Amanda?
Thank you. I recently met with a local group of peace officers and specifically asked if there was a communication issue. I asked if any of them had a difficulty locating, getting in touch with anyone in my office, getting legal answers, or communicating regarding their cases at any time, nights, days, weekends, and there was no communication issue. That was made clear to me. However, if the question is what would we do to promote public safety, it's kind of an odd thing to think about, but one of the big difficulties we're dealing with right now in light of coming out of COVID is we do have a huge increase in surge in property crimes. We also have a reduction in retention for trained staff within the county, and all up and down the state, DA's offices are having a hard time recruiting. So I truly think we need to value and empower our people so that they can do the best possible job they can. As a county, we've been working to come together to work on better ways of retaining and recruiting qualified employees. That'll serve our community.
This is a case that kind of went across into both counties, both the county you serve in, Jennifer, as well as Sutter County, and that's the Connie Addison case where Alec Flores was run over on his way to school. How do each of you believe the Connie Addison case sentencing was, how that turned out? Amanda?
Is it to me? Okay. Without commenting on the facts of the case, I will simply say that that case was repeatedly staffed within my office and with the law enforcement officers who worked on that case. I feel strongly about that case. We did the right thing. We sought the right charges. We received the right verdict from the jury. The judge upheld that verdict, and I'm incredibly proud of everyone who worked on that case.
Constance Addison deserved to be convicted as she was. She murdered Alec Flores. There is no excuse for what she did. She should never have had her bail set as low as what it was. Her bail should have been increased at the request of the district attorney's office. Ideally, we would have requested no bail if I had been in that position. But certainly we would have requested that it be set a lot higher than it was, so that Constance Addison would not have remained free and out of custody, enjoying her life for as long as she did.
All right, thank you. Another good question from the audience. As district attorney, you are the top law enforcement official in the county. How will you work with local law enforcement officers to ensure victims receive justice? And please be specific. Jennifer.
I'll prosecute cases. I'll work with law enforcement, and I will prosecute cases. Citizens will not have to beg or threaten to go to the media regarding cases, violent cases, for which every element that is required to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt is present. I will work with law enforcement to ensure that while they have to meet the probable cause standard, we have everything we need to meet our beyond a reasonable doubt standard. We ethically cannot prosecute a case if we do not have proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So we will work closely with law enforcement to ensure that we have what we need to aggressively and consistently prosecute cases. We will do reasonable plea deals, not have fire sales, because unfortunately plea deals are a way of life. Nobody has the resources to try every single case. And my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda?
Thank you. As the district attorney and the leader of the office, I meet with the department heads of law enforcement in both counties regularly. We discuss the needs of the county for public safety and how we can meet that. I ensure that my staff is trained, just as they ensure that their staff is trained. My staff participates in trainings with law enforcement officers in all sorts of ways and arenas. We've done that consistently. In fact, I had a lieutenant from the sheriff's office call me today in response to a request for training that my office, me specifically, volunteered to give for their staff. So we'll continue to do that. But more importantly, I empower everyone in my office to handle their cases, to do their job as best as they possibly can, to understand their roles. And it is not my job to undermine or undercut them by micromanaging. I empower them so they can do their job. And then I'm there to make sure to support them and ensure justice. That's what a leader does.
Let's start with Amanda on this next question, and this is interesting. I really haven't thought about this myself. What is your take on misappropriation of public funds, and what is your experience in these cases?
Well, specifically talking about misappropriation of public funds, the hot topic right now is the EDD fraud that took place in California. My office, almost immediately upon becoming aware that this was going on, asked the sheriff's office if we could see if there were any inmates who'd received unemployment funds fraudulently. We got a list of inmates. We cross-referenced it with the state EDD office. It took quite a bit of time. And then I created a unit to investigate those cases. I reached out to every law enforcement agency in 2 counties. everyone said they didn't have the time or the resources. So my office is doing this on their own. We've already made arrests. My investigators made arrests of 3 individuals who've fraudulently received well over $300,000 of taxpayer money from Sutter County.
So misappropriation of public funds is a crime, and it needs to be treated as such, regardless of whether it's EDD fraud or some other misappropriation of, for example, county resources. With regards to EDD fraud, I would note that Butte County has been one of the most successful counties in prosecuting EDD fraud. I personally have received several phone calls from Sutter County asking for guidance and who to talk to so that they know the best practices to prosecute and collect on the EDD fraud. I think that anyone who misappropriates public funds does need to be prosecuted. They need to be held accountable regardless of who they are.
All right, thank you. We have another audience question. Pretty simple. Jennifer, how many cases have you personally prosecuted?
Well, there's a difference between prosecuted and taking to trial. So I have taken over 70 cases to trial between jury trials and court trials. I prosecute probably well over 100 cases in the course of an average year, over 18 years. So, and especially when I was doing misdemeanors in Yuba County, I was doing hundreds at any given time. So I would say easily I have personally prosecuted to one extent or another over 2,000 cases. Easily.
Thank you. Amanda?
Thank you. Those are accurate distinctions, and it's somewhat important to look at those as far as prosecuting cases as well. In 19 years, I couldn't begin to speculate how many cases I've prosecuted. It's in the thousands, no doubt. Court trials, if anyone's unaware, that is a trial where there is no jury. It's the judge who decides whether or not the individual is guilty or innocent. I don't know how many court trials I've personally tried. I never kept stats. They're pretty simple usually. Have no clue. Would have to guess. Jury trials, close to 40.
Okay, we'll start this next question with Amanda, and this is a rather long question. I'll see if I can. This is from the audience. As current state law makers have violated Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution with the increase in domestic violence, if elected, would you work with Sutter County Sheriff and Sutter County supervisors to pass a resolution locally to help protest public from unjust laws coming from state lawmakers who do not care about justice for crimes committed? That's a mouthful.
It is indeed, and I'm not quite sure the question because it seems to be would I work to change the law, but it seems to be discussing domestic violence specifically. Is that accurate? Well, I think that when laws are unjust, that we should all work to change the laws. Domestic violence laws in the state of California have not, to my knowledge, changed much at all in the last couple of decades. Where I see the problem with domestic violence is right now, people just aren't staying in custody as much right now. Because of COVID rules, they don't stay in, they get out, and then they repeat, and we are back with more problems. As far as the sentences, I actually think that most domestic violence sentences in the state of California are within the realistic realm, because if there's enhancements for great bodily injury, there's enhancements for priors, things like that, and those are realistic and appropriate.
Jennifer?
The question is a bit confusing, and I'm not certain whether the way the question is phrased, domestic violence would mean intimate partner battering versus violence domestically. So federal law provides that it shall not interfere with state law under most circumstances. I don't know that it is necessarily the most, and again, I'm not sure which way to go with this question because I'm not sure really what it's asking. In terms of intimate partner battering, that needs to be prosecuted aggressively. It is a serious problem. It affects children in the family as they see it. So I think that our state laws are somewhat aggressive. They could be tighter. We do have enhancements to the extent that we are allowed to keep them anymore, another change in the law. But I do think that our state law for domestic violence, when applied appropriately, is very effective.
Last question, I believe. Yep. I didn't have this written down, but you both have spoken about how we need to increase sentences. Do you believe in mandatory minimum sentences? And if not, how do you determine how much time someone should spend in prison? Jennifer.
So the federal system has mandatory minimums. I don't believe that is appropriate because it doesn't take into consideration all the relevant factors. I believe that our current triad system is very good. It does provide under, if you qualify, it does provide for probation and looking at the factors of a defendant's criminal history, the facts of the case, the vulnerability of the victim. There's a whole litany of aggravating factors and mitigating factors in the rules of court that we follow to determine what is the appropriate sentence, whether it's the lower term, the middle term, or the upper term. So ignoring the bad changes in the law that affect the sentencing, we need to look at all of the circumstances of the crime, definitely consider the criminal history, make a determination of how dangerous this defendant is, and the likelihood of rehabilitation based on their history, their age, and their crime.
Thank you. Amanda?
Thank you. I actually agree. Mandatory minimum sentences do undercut the discretion necessary for a prosecuting agency to understand the case that they're prosecuting. You need to know the facts. You need to know the criminal history. All the specifics that Jennifer just said go into what is the most just outcome. So taking away the discretion of either the prosecutor, if it's a negotiated resolution, or the courts to set what they think is the most applicable sentence is not something that I would be a fan of. It would also somewhat undermine the role of the probation department with the courts and with sentencing, and we really do need to incorporate all known facts into each individual case. That's what justice is. That is handling every single case the way that will protect society, protect all of us, and deter future criminality.
And thank you to both candidates for a wonderful discussion this evening. We'd like to move now to closing statements, and each one of you has up to 2 minutes to give a closing statement, and we'll start with Jennifer Dupree.
Thank you. I would bring real experience to the office of the district attorney. I want to share with you my endorsements, some of which were announced today. Most notably, with regards to justice and keeping our community safe, I have received the endorsements of the Yuba City Police Department, the Yuba City Police Department sergeants, the Sutter County Sheriff's Office patrol deputies. They have all endorsed me. That shows that they see the need for change. I have also received the endorsements of Supervisors Baines, Conant, and Ziegenmeyer, as well as Mayor Dave Shaw, Vice Mayor Wade Kirchner, Councilmember Mark Boomgarden, former Mayor Cash Gill, former Mayor Karen Cardacelli, and Assembly Republican leader James Gallagher. 57 out of 58 DA's offices are able to do justice fairly and blindly as required, while still communicating with law enforcement, the county, the city, and the community. I want to be the 58th. I want to protect ag crime aggressively. We deserve to have a safer community than what we have. We deserve for our community to be safe for our kids, our grandkids, and ourselves. Thank you.
And your 2 minutes, Amanda.
Thank you. What is doing justice? Justice is fighting for our community and for all of us. Justice is caring about the people in this community. Justice is caring about our children, raising our children here, ensuring that we give the best public safety system that we possibly can. That means training all of our staff so that they're knowledgeable, so that they work hard, so that they work with each other. That means creating a culture of an environment in an office where no one is above the law, where no one gets special favors, where no one has special access, where everyone handles cases ethically. That's justice, but justice is also working to implement programs that enhance the efficacy of an office. Programs like forming a public integrity unit, an officer-involved shooting unit, an EDD fraud unit, a cold case homicide unit. It means empowering your staff for changing cases and changing laws. Sutter County was able to receive the first guilty verdict of a murderer who was found and located through reverse familial DNA in the state of California under my leadership. The Constance Addison case was under my leadership, me empowering my staff for charges we had never sought in this county before. Justice is tripling the Victim Services Program, creating a child advocacy center for the first time in this community where children who are impacted in crime are treated with respect, where they come to one location and they receive all the services that they can have there in the most trauma-informed way possible. Justice is honoring our victims. Justice is honoring our citizen heroes. These are all programs that I've implemented as the District Attorney of Sutter County. My home, where I grew up and raised my children, where I care.
And ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for both of our candidates this evening. I'd like to mention again that this will be on the Facebook page until Election Day of the Yuba-Sutter Chamber of Commerce. So if you'd like to watch this again, please look at that or tell your friends about it as well. We'll be on Wednesday night at the Yuba County Government Center with a very packed evening looking at the Yuba County Superintendent of Schools race as well as Yuba County Supervisors District 1 and District 5, the Yuba County Water Agency South Division, and the Yuba County Clerk's Office. So lots going on coming up on Wednesday evening. Thank you very much for being with us, and I'm starting to feel the air conditioner.